enough of that. Enough of that. Let's get to John Eastman. Hi, John. Sorry, I'm going on vacation, so we regressed.
I hope your vacation includes a lot of cold showers. You seem to need them.
Tim, I'm married. I'm married to one of the hottest tickets in Washington D.C. So not too concerned about that, but I do like Kretsch. Uh, anyway, John, let's get to this seditious six. I'm going on vacation, so you got me the last segment before vacation. Worst possible time for Christine to put you on. So John, happy Thanksgiving to you and your wife. I really don't feel like doing this segment, much as I love you, but go ahead. Tell me about what you thought of the seditious sixth, and then we'll get on to the judge throwing out the Comey and Tish thing. Go ahead.
The sedition tape, look, they're going to claim they had the First Amendment right to do what they did. There's an old Supreme Court case called Schenck from World War I era, where if you encourage military to demoralize them or not engage in the draft or other things, that's seditious conspiracy, and you can be criminally prosecuted, rather serious charges. The question is whether that case has been overtaken by a 1950s era case called Brandenburg. Says that speech has to lead to imminent lawlessness in order for it not to be protected. Now, the issues are whether those two cases remain compatible, and it's not been decided by the Supreme Court. And then with Mark Kelly, there's an even broader difference, which is there are rules that apply to members of the military, including reservists, as he is, that restricts their speech beyond what would be applicable in civilian context. And so the threat by the Department of Defense, Department of War, against Mark Kelly to recall him to active duty and then court martial him, I think is a very serious and realistic possibility. He should be very concerned having joined that. And, they're going to say, well, we said, you're not obligated to follow illegal laws. That's true, but it was an eye wink, and everything the president is saying is illegal. So you should not be following the commander in chief at all. That's what the message was. It was pretty clear. And that's insurrection. And for a member of the military to have engaged in that, as Mark Kelly did, I think is a very serious breach of his obligations and his oath. And I think he could well be called up into active duty and then court-martialed and get a prison sentence, but at the very least lose his military pension.
They'll never do anything, John.
Yeah, I'm just saying what the law allows. I'm not saying
Right.
what the
They're not gonna
political
do
will
anything.
will do.
At the end of the day, for people like yourself, you're drained of your resources. You're threatened with prison. Your freedom's at risk. But for them, doesn't matter what they do. There's no consequences. Like, look what just happened to Comey and Letitia James. Thrown out, blame the prosecutor for inexperience throughout the case. Nothing happens again. Reaction.
Well, they're going to appeal, and we should be clear that the throwing out of those cases was not based on the merits or based on this false claim that she didn't get the whole grand jury to vote on things. That's just propaganda and false. It was the claim that the 120 days for an interim had expired, and therefore the president has no authority to put anybody into the office of U.S. attorney to help him execute the laws. Only the court can make that appointment. And that's rather bizarre. It's an open question in the law whether the statute that authorizes the appointment of a 120-day interim is cumulative. So if one interim is there and resigns and creates a new vacancy before the 120 days expires, the new appointee gets a new 120 days. I think that's the best way to read the statute. And Halligan, the interim U.S. attorney that brought these indictments, was clearly within that 120 days. I think she'd only been there a week or so. So that'll get decided up on appeal. And the other very bizarre aspect of that is the Democrats are using the blue slip to prevent the president from putting in U.S. attorneys. And then they appoint an interim. And then at the end of the 120 days, the courts are refusing to ratify that appointment as the statute allows. And so they're blocking. And all of a sudden, the president is without U.S. attorneys in some of the most critical districts in the country. How does he take care that the laws be faithfully executed, his constitutional duty, when you have this collusion between the Democrat senators using the blue slip and the heavily Democrat appointed district courts refusing to appoint anybody to fill the role of U.S. attorney. And what business do the courts have in the first place appointing the prosecutor who's then going to present a case before them? It's a huge separation of powers problems authorized by a technical reading of a provision of the Constitution that I think just completely bollockses what the Constitution's intent was. And so I think these things are going to be resolved on appeal. There's some very significant constitutional issues there, and it'll get resolved on the James Comey case. We'll see what happens.
Where does the Trump administration go from here on all of this stuff? I mean, we had another ruling that, where we can't have the federal troops in D.C. The judge knows it's going to be overturned, so gave him 21 days. I mean, what is the deal with this stuff?
Well, on the U.S. attorney, look, the top law enforcement officer in the country is the chief executive, the president. If I were him, I would make the case to the grand jury myself, and then I would sign the document re-indicting James Comey, President of the United States, Chief Executive Officer of the country. That's what I would do, and just get through this nonsense. You guys want to play games? Then all bets are off, and I'm going to start exercising the powers that the Constitution gives me. Remember, the Article 3 judicial power is only the powers listed. The Article 1 legislative power is only the powers enumerated. The Article 2 executive power is the executive power. All of it is vested in not U.S. attorneys, not Department of Justice, not bureaucrats at the Federal Trade Commission. The executive power is vested in the President of the United States. And all of these controversies are with people trying to claim that they have executive power that the Constitution doesn't give to them. And I think he's just, this is, the setup on the overturning Humphrey's executor on the role of administrative agencies, and Congress trying to prevent the president from directing them by firing people not doing his bidding. I think we're going to find a restoration of the Constitution's proper authority of the executive by the time we're done with this. And I think that's a huge development, getting us back on track, because that's how we, the American people, hold our government accountable. The one guy that we elect has to be the one in charge. And if we don't like it, we can throw him out. But the notion that the Federal Trade Commission or the Securities and Exchange Commission or whatever these alphabet soup agencies want to do, that they're accountable to the people, but they're accountable to anybody, it's insane. And it's been that way for nearly 100 years since the New Deal. And I think it's time to get us back on the right constitutional track. And this president and his Department of Justice seem really bent on doing just that.
John Eastman. John, to you and your lovely wife, you hang in there. You have a happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you on the flip next Monday. People want to help your lawfare. Where do they go?
GiveSendGo.com/Eastman. GiveSendGo.com/Eastman. And it's renewed urgency because in Georgia and Arizona, the prosecutors didn't drop the cases as we had hoped the last couple of weeks. So we're back on heading toward trial in both of those matters.
They never stop, John. They never stop. These people are evil. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, John. Hope you enjoy your children. And I'm out. Over and out.
All right.
Killer Carl
Take
tomorrow,
care.
6 to 8 a.m. and Professor Klein 8 to 10. I'll be back Saturday for Godzilla Wins at 9 a.m. In the meantime, to everyone, have a wonderful and happy Thanksgiving. Michael Patrick Leahy right now.